Hey y'all, if you just come over here from my latest video on Michelle After Dark and this is your first visit to my second channel, this is Michelle Walks, then please do subscribe, because if you enjoy the videos on Michelle After Dark, then you'll definitely enjoy the videos on this channel as well. In this video, we're going to look at two opposing theories as to why the four University of Idaho students, Kaylee, Xana, Ethan and Maddie, were murdered on November 13th of last year. So if you've been following my coverage of the Idaho 4 murders since the beginning, you'll know that I talked a lot about theories in those early days, well before we knew that Bryan Kohberger existed. And speaking hypothetically, about 10 days after the murders occurred, I put together a possible profile, and I made several videos talking through why I thought the killer's profile was the way that I outlined it. And now we know about Bryan Kohberger, and we know some stuff about his life. There's quite a lot of people spoken out. The recent mini documentary that Law and Crime Network did was very good. We've had the probable cause affidavit, which was pretty detailed, and we've also had numerous anonymous sources, mainly detailed by Ashley Banfield. I don't set much stock in anonymous sources. They could all be telling big fat lies. But assuming that at least some of that is accurate, and that what people have come out and said is also accurate, then we've got some knowledge further than what we had at the beginning of the case, when I and others were talking hypothetically and theoretically. So although my profile I don't think was 100% spot on, I think it was pretty close. But the reason why I want to bring it back now, given the amount of information we've had, and especially given the huge amount of documents, like over 700 pages worth of search warrants that were released. Some information within them was redacted, but they've generated a lot of discussion amongst both the mainstream media and social media creators who are covering this case. So I did a video last weekend, mainly focused on the Amazon search warrant and the other outlets where a K-bar knife could have been bought from. But this is the first video I've done talking really specifically and relating that search warrant information to the theories that were outlined at the beginning of this case. It doesn't matter to me which one turns out to be true. I'm just talking generally here. And of course, Bryan Kohberger is innocent till proven guilty in a court of law. But for the sake of this video, let's assuming that the cops have got the right man and that Bryan Kohberger is the killer. So the theories are: did Bryan target one person, one of the four, and the other three were collateral damage? Secondly, was it that Bryan didn't know any of them and it was the house that inspired him, that he was looking for a kill, that he was looking to perhaps emulate the likes of Ted Bundy? Bryan, being a criminal justice student at a higher level, he was, at the beginning of a PhD journey, he may have been interested in serial killers. He may have longed to copycat one of these serial killer heroes. We know some serial killers do that. Israel Keyes, for example, absolutely dreadful what he got away with for years. And his most favourite person in the entire world, his superhero, was Ted Bundy. So these things do happen. So it could be possible that Bryan chose that house, 1122 King Road, and didn't know the inhabitants, except for it was inhabited by 5 young women. And the two theories, whether Bryan targeted the house and didn't actually care who he killed, versus targeting one, they're not 100% opposing. You can say that there's some commonalities between them. Anyway, the main one being that it was women, or a particular woman, that was targeted. I believe that in addition to my point 9, narcissism and Machiavellianism, And also number 7, the hypermasculine stroke misogyny. What we've got is someone who is very self-centered, someone who is very emotionless, but someone who likes control. And attitudinally, someone who hates women. This is the epitome of the incel. And in both of those theories, I think the underlying motive has to be hatred of women. So was it the house? You know, he was cruising around looking for suitable houses that were inhabited by young women. And 1122 King Road was perfect because it's got that car parking area at the back, which directly overlooks the back of the house, directly overlooks the bedrooms of Kaylee and Maddie. And Dylan's room is on the bottom floor there. And then the living area, like the kitchen stroke living area. You can see the backyard where they might have gone out to party. So someone could have been hanging out there many times and never ever been spotted. So that house is perfect. It's a perfect murder house. But did it go down like that? Or was there a particular target? Now, early on in the case, Kaylee's dad came out and said that he believed that Kaylee was the target because she had a stalker. Now, there was some kind of conflicting information about Kaylee had a stalker, and then Kaylee didn't have a stalker, and then law enforcement came out and said that they didn't find any evidence that Kaylee had a stalker. There was kind of one situation, but probably not related. Kaylee was into true crime, so perhaps she was a little bit hypervigilant. Or maybe she really did have a stalker. Kaylee's dad also said that he believed Kaylee was the target because her injuries were worse than Maddie's. Best friends were murdered in the same bed. Now, I argued in previous videos that Kaylee's injuries might have been worse than Maddie's. I mean, both obviously fatal and dreadful and horrible. But if the killer had gone into the room and both of them were asleep, but in killing one, woke up the other. So Maddie first woke up Kaylee, and Kaylee put up somewhat of a fight and then succumbed to her injuries. But her injuries were worse because the killer had to try a little bit harder. That was just my speculation. But the information that we've got, and obviously it's only a fraction of the information that the cops have, leads me to believe that one theory is slightly more probable than the other. So given all the information we've had, I believe that there was one target. And I have gone a little bit backwards and forwards on this. But given the information in totality, I think there was one target. And the others were collateral damage. That Brian intended to slip into the house, murder his intended victim, didn't expect there to be 2 people in one room, and also didn't expect to wake up Ethan and Xana. Definitely, Ethan is collateral damage because he didn't live there anyway. I have gone a little bit backwards and forwards. I've made videos saying I don't think there was one target, because why would you break in when you know there's several people in there? Even though I didn't expect Ethan to be there, still, you know, several people as potential witnesses. So wouldn't you pick a time when that person was on their own? But someone who was a hunter, someone who was hunting that person down, perhaps became obsessed, and it perhaps was a thrill to think that he could take this person out. You know, this hatred had gathered so much for this person that he could take that person out when there was other people around. It's like the ultimate in domination. Also, before Brian's arrest, I was speculating whether it was something to do with Ethan and his membership of his fraternity. That theory's by the wayside now because that didn't happen. In release of these documents, is there any evidence within these documents that could possibly indicate a target? And I know some people believe there is, but I don't think so. They're interesting nonetheless, but I don't think we can use these documents towards there being a specific target. Some people have said there's an overrepresentation of discovery about Kaylee's life than the others. And perhaps that's simply because she had more social media than the others. But let's have a look at a few of these things. So there is a lot of documents. So each of the victims' Apple accounts there. And then you've got the stores that relate to the weapon, like Amazon, K-Bar Knives, Blue Ridge Knives, Walmart. And you've also got a lot of banks. And because there's 4 victims and then 1 perpetrator, you've got 5 amounts of bank accounts to go through. And obviously, bank accounts, what you're buying is very indicative of the way you live your life. You know, where you've been, what you've bought, all of that. Very, very useful as discovery. But I want to look at these social media platforms. And we've got here, this is Yik Yak. Now, I hadn't heard of Yik Yak before because I'm not down with the cool kids. But apparently it's a social media platform, and you can like search for people that are very close to your home. And you can see here that this is a search warrant for the Yik Yak account of Brian Koberger. So it was Brian that had the Yik Yak account. That's the only Yik Yak profile that has been searched. None of the victims had Yik Yak. And then we've got 1 Yahoo account, which is for Kaylee. And I know some people have said that this is investigation into Kaylee's stalker and Kaylee possibly being the target. I'm not sure it is. I think perhaps it's just that only Kaylee had a Yahoo account. Then we've got 2 for Snapchat. This is a combined warrant for Xana, Kaylee, Ethan, and then we've got some redacted names, so we don't know who those are for. Now, were those suspected people, persons of interest early on? Because remember, these warrants were written early on. So date on this one, 21st of November. So only 8 days after the murders. So we know this is not relating to Brian Koberger because they wouldn't have had him in their sights by then. I don't think, anyway. So these were perhaps people who were associated with Xana, Kaylee, and Ethan. Maybe the Jacks. I don't know. Maybe the surviving roommates had Snapchats. They were looking at them as well. And then we've got another Snapchat one. And it's interesting that Maddie's is done separately. I don't know why that was. Same day. I don't know. I don't know why they did that. And then we've got 1 Reddit, and that was for Kaylee. So there was only Kaylee who had a Reddit account. And then we've got 6 Meta platforms accounts. So I believe these are like Facebook. Meta's like, I don't know, the parent company, whatever you call it. So this is Facebook account. Again, people who are redacted and Kaylee. So maybe that's people connected with Kaylee's life. I don't know, just guessing. We don't know because they're redacted. And then we've got Maddie, Kaylee again, Ethan, and Xana, and some redacted. Then we've got another one for Xana. Perhaps they did them separately because they've got different accounts. Like they've got more than 1 account. I don't know, guessing. Ethan, Maddie, and then you've got some more names redacted, identifiers redacted in relation to Ethan. And this is an Instagram account. Now, there's only 1 Instagram account that I can find on here. But that doesn't mean to say that more Instagram accounts weren't investigated, because not all the warrants have been unsealed yet. And then the last ones I want to show you, there's also some Google accounts as well. So this is the Google accounts of Brian Koberger. So obviously this is later, once he'd been, you know, identified. And then we've got a Google account for Kaylee as well. I do think it's that Kaylee just had more accounts than everybody else. I don't see why, if let's say Xana and Maddie and Ethan also had Yahoo accounts, that they wouldn't want their details as well. Then you've got 5 for Match Group, which is like dating sites like Tinder. So this one appears to be for the property itself. All subscriber information between March 1st, 2021 through March 31st, 2021. Included but not limited to biographical data, geographical information, username, phone number. So it's a very specific time. I'm interested in that. And then the second one is for the Tinder account of Kaylee. So Kaylee had a Tinder account. And we did hear from her family that she'd been on a date that didn't end well. And some people have speculated that that was with Brian Koberger. So, I don't know. And then there's another match search warrant for the property from November 3rd to present. So why they did one for March 2021 and then they did a second one for November 3rd, 2022, which makes more sense when the murders were. I'm wondering whether that March one was for a specific reason. Must have been for a specific reason, obviously. And then we've got Maddie. So Maddie also had a Tinder account. And then finally, we've got another one, March 1st, 2021. So, I don't know. See, there's some more documents sealed here. So we're going to have to wait and see what more comes out. There are rumblings that there's more information due to come out. So we'll have to wait and see as to what that is. But although there's a lot of information here, I think this information on its own doesn't tell us anything in relation to motive. It just tells us what the cops were able to find from the profiles of the victims and also Brian Koberger. So the plot thickens. If it was one target, as one of Ashley Banfield's mystery sources said, that one of the victims had been messaged by Brian. Well, we don't know that yet. We don't have that information yet. Not that we could speculate based on court documents anyway. It's interesting that Brian had a Yik Yak account. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. I've been Michelle. Hope you're well. I'll see you in the next video. It's goodbye from Miss Tillington and Miss Cassie Springer. Bye, guys.